Welcome. I'm Larry Olsen, and this is the Brain Vault Podcast. Did you know that the thoughts you're thinking right now are shaping the life you'll live tomorrow? Well, in this podcast, we just don't talk about mindset. We decode the blueprint behind behavior, performance, and possibility. This is where science meets real-world strategy, and your brain stops running on autopilot. If you're ready to turn default thinking into intentional living, you're in the right place. I want to welcome everybody to the Brain Vault Podcast. I know you had all kinds of opportunities to listen elsewhere, and you chose to listen to us. And since the only thing we can't get back in life is our time, we've decided today to maximize that opportunity for you. My guest today embodies the very core of what we explore in this podcast, and that's how the mind can transform adversity into advantage. John Kippen is an entrepreneur, professional magician, speaker, resilience and empowerment coach, and a published author whose life took a dramatic turn in 2002. Check this out. When a benign brain tumor left him with permanent facial paralysis. For more than 12 years, John hid from the world until he rediscovered the magic, literally. By returning to his childhood love of performing and storytelling, he uncovered a truth that changed everything. And this truth can change it for you as well. What he once saw as his greatest limitation had become his greatest superpower. Now, John empowers others with the same messages he lives by. Being different is your superpower, and feed your heart with your art. He's a living example of what happens when you stop shrinking and start showing up. John, welcome to the Brain Vault Podcast.
Man, I need to hire you as my PR man. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you, Larry.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you for being here. We're very excited about this opportunity. John, I wanted to start out the interview with you thinking about and sharing with us, what was the moment or the thought that shifted you from hiding your face to realizing it was the most powerful part of your story?
You know, as you said, I hid for 12 plus years. And that all started when I woke up after my surgery and was in the hospital, and it was like 17, 18-hour surgery. And as I struggled to come to, my dad was sitting on the edge of the bed holding my hand, and he was smiling, and I realized the dizziness that had plagued me for so long was gone, and I was so relieved. And but I looked around the room, and I didn't see my mom, so I asked my dad for my glasses, and I tried to put them on, and my head was bandaged, so getting them on was a challenge, but I did. And I saw my mom standing in the corner, and the look on her face was one of horror. It was like, what did these butchers do to my poor son's face? And in hindsight, that was the beginning of my downward spiral. You know, my own mom didn't have my face any longer. How was I supposed to have?
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
You know, and that came after many years of, you know, deep self-reflection. But my job, I owned a computer consulting company, which allowed me to work from home, and it gave me an excuse to just deal with people remotely and on the phone and not meet new people and so forth. And that got to be easy for me. And that got to be the way I started hiding from life. But I got bored, and I turned to one of my passions was playing semi-professional poker. And being in LA, I would go to one of the card clubs, and I would sit at a table, and people could care less about my paralysis. They just wanted my money. And I started to establish these relationships with degenerate gamblers. Those were not the people I wanted to surround myself with.
Did you find, because I mean, you're at a point now where you're building your self-image back and more importantly, your self-esteem. And yet you were getting recognition from you're the one who labeled it degenerate gamblers. Do you think that took a little away from it being completely empowering, or was that just a great start?
I think that was just a great start. You know, it I was a decent poker player. I wouldn't say I was, great, but I was decent. And it was more of a psychological experience. And it allowed me to hone my skills of perception and to get
Hmm,
other people to do what I wanted them to do.
hmm, hmm,
It was more of a, I mean, it wasn't very high stakes poker, and so it allowed me to convince people to go all in or do whatever, and so I kind of realized that I was a creative problem solver, and I used that in all aspects of my life
hmm,
because I
hmm,
was a theater guy. So
hmm,
anyway, but I was like not really happy with those relationships. So I saw David Copperfield's magic special on TV. And I was like, that's what I want to do.
hmm, hmm,
I want to create the possible out of the impossible.
hmm.
And I had done magic since I was 6 when my uncle pulled a coin out of my ear. And that was a childhood hobby, and I loved doing it because um, I was able to be anybody I wanted to be. And so I
Hmm,
joined the Magic Castle, which is a private club in Los Angeles for magicians, and I would sit down at a table and dressed in a suit, and there's this big guy with balding hair and a facial paralysis
hmm,
sitting ready to perform magic, and people who were there to see magic would sit down at a table with me, but they were reserved, they didn't know what to make of me, especially women.
hmm,
So they would sit there with their arms crossed and their legs crossed, not and kind of leaning back on the chair and not really understanding who I was and what I was all about. And so they were protective of themselves.
hmm.
They had no idea what my intentions were.
Do you ever think that they thought your facial expressions were a part of your magic and ultimately you're going to release into this big smile or something?
No, I don't. I
No.
don't, I don't think so.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I found that they were distracted by my paralysis,
Ah.
and not in a negative way. They were just curious.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
He's a
but if
big.
they're focusing on that, they're not focusing on the magic. So somehow that needs to be a part of it, it would seem in the beginning.
So I changed my act once I realized that, and I would introduce myself. I'd say, "Hi, guys. My name is John, and I've been doing magic all my life." But in '02, I was
Mm,
diagnosed with this tumor that paralyzed my face. But something happened to me when I woke up on that operating room table. I don't know what it was. I was unconscious. All I know is I recovered. I realized I had acquired some new skills.
mm,
And then I
mm.
waited and waited. And I waited for the audience to get on the edge of their chair, wondering what kind of skills I could have possibly acquired from having brain surgery.
Wow.
And I would turn to my right and my left like it was the biggest secret in the world. And I would lean in and I would say, guys, I am able to manipulate people's thoughts.
Hmm,
And then I would do some mentalism.
hmm.
And all of a sudden, people now understood why my face was paralyzed and were no longer distracted from it.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And so
What
they
a
were able to be
truism in that, huh?
be able to be 100% present.
Yeah. You weren't trying to hide anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's when it all of a sudden became my biggest superpower.
Hmm.
And I found that, I'm a storyteller. Um, from early on, I was always a dreamer.
Hmm.
And in my coaching practice, I work with my clients to start dreaming again. As kids, that's all we do is dream and go into that land of make believe. We're home and our parents have an adult friend come over and they say, we introduced them to us and they say, John, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Hmm.
And you say, I want to be a fireman. No, wait, 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 wait. I want to be a rocket scientist. No, no, no. I want to be a rock star. And then I would take two rulers and start banging on stuff and go into my room and start playing air guitar and start singing and get in this world of make believe where everything was possible. It was just limited my own imagination, and I could be in there for hours till mom called me for dinner.
Hmm.
And then as we start to grow up and we start to develop our own personality and we stop dreaming.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And we get to a point in our lives where we look back on our achievements and we say, "What?
Hmm.
I achieved all this stuff, and why do I feel so empty?"
Hmm.
And the answer is because we're not living our dream, that we're living someone else's dream, our parents' dream, our teacher's dream.
Yeah.
And for some of us, it's almost too late,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I guide my clients to go back to a time where everything is possible. My coaching method is called the I'm possible method.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a
Beautiful.
play on the word and impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Impossible really is I'm possible. And again, it's a mindset shift, but it allows you to just imagine what you can be, who you can be, how you can start over no matter how old you are, and take your own skills and your own passions and let them drive you to be your authentic self.
Hmm.
And you will be amazed that once you start presenting your authentic self and the things you're passionate about, you can't help but being attractive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not in a sexual, physical way, just
Right.
in a
Yeah.
in a emotional and real way.
Yeah. Instead of repelling people, they're attracted to the fact that they can expose their innocence. They can expose that 5-year-old. I do a little exercise when I'm working with leaders, and I'll say, "Could you pretend you're 5 for a minute?" And all of a sudden, the whole demeanor changes. And they go,
Yeah.
"Okay." And I knock on their door and I go, "You want to play?" And they go, "Yes." And I go, "Look at how quick that reaction was." And I said, and unfortunately, we grow into what's called a dull T, which is a dull thinker.
Right.
And we go, now I knock on his door and he goes, well, how long were you talking about playing? And what do you mean by play? And is there any money involved? And we get to a point where we go, I have responsibilities now. I can't be. And this is really interesting. And the power that you just shared with me, I've got a wonderful, wonderful wife after trying to couple out first, 2 divorces. And I realized there was a common denominator, John, in the divorces. And my first reaction was the old leadership model. If you don't succeed, fix the blame fast. And I knew it wasn't my fault. And then I did a little work and realized that I was the common denominator. And when I met her, I had my hair kind of in what she called a bouffant. I didn't, I had it kind of pulled over and I would spray it before I'd go out. And I was so self-conscious because I started receding in my late 20s. And one day she looked at me and she goes, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "What's with the bouffant?" And I told her what I was doing, and she goes, "You don't need hair to be beautiful." And it was the reverse kind of what your mom did, right? But it was the realization of what you're sharing is I'm the only one who's carrying that insecurity.
Right.
Why do I
Exactly.
continue to put that on others? And this is what's such a milestone with what you're doing is, people have difficulty. They'd like to think they're into differences. But they have difficulty in how to react. Do I talk louder? Do I not look? Um, and that's not when we were 5. Did we care? So I apologize. I just had to share what you triggered for me on how
Yeah.
freeing that was when I didn't have to worry about the wind anymore. I didn't have to worry about, whether my hair blew around. As silly as that compared to what you were going through. But I wanted to ask you, what part of your brain did the tumor hit?
Well, it was displacing my brainstem. It was the size of a golf ball.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
And the good thing was benign, so it wasn't
Yeah.
malignant, but it was displacing my brainstem and causing me dizziness
Okay.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
How long did that go on?
Yeah, 2, 3 months,
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Yeah. Oh, that had to.
and, finally, I took my future in my own hands, and I went and got an MRI, and I'm claustrophobic, so that was hard, but
That was tough. Bong, 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 bong.
yeah. But I as soon as I got out of the MRI, I went to the receptionist and I said, how much to buy that set of films that you just printed?" And they, "Oh, no, John, no, those go to the radiologist, and then in a couple of days, he'll read them and write a report and send the report to your doctor, and then your doctor will get around to calling you and give you the results." And I said, "No, that's not the answer to the question. The answer to the question, and this is who I am. This is my sense of humor. This is me not taking no for an answer. This is me being who I am. I'm just naturally take my own power."
Yeah.
And I said, "No, no, no, that's not the answer to the question. The answer to the question is a couple $100. How much for those films?" And she was like, "No one's ever asked me that."
Mhm.
So you gets on the phone and talks to her back office and said, $300. And I gave her a credit card and I bought those films so that they could print another set for the radiologist.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the office and drove to my ENT office without an appointment. And I
Mm.
walked in and I wasn't expected, so they were like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I held up through the window, I held up this envelope of MRIs, and my doctor saw them through the window and said, "All right, John, I got a few minutes, come in." And we went in the examining room, and he took the first film, and he put it on the whiteboard. The color drained from his face,
Oh, my golly.
and he was like, I'm not a specialist in any way, shape, or form on this, but I see something, and it's concerning, so sit back, and I'm gonna make a couple phone calls."
Hmm.
And he called a doctor in downtown in the house care clinic where that's all they did is deal with facial or with acoustic neuromas, which was the kind of tumor I had.
Okay.
And somehow he got an appointment for the very next day, and he said, "Okay, John, tomorrow go take these films down to downtown and see a specialist." So, um, I did, and there I am sitting on the examining table, and, my everything is heightened. I can hear the tissue paper on the table under my butt kind of
Mhm.
rustling and ripping as I'm squirming,
Wow.
and
Do you think you had any fear going on? And
I
I
was
don't think.
scared.
Were you? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had no idea what he was gonna say. I just knew from my ENT's reaction
Yeah.
that
Turning
there
gray.
was something not good in that MRI, and I didn't know,
Ah,
I was a glasses half full guy. I'm like, "Well, maybe they can give me a pill, or
yeah. Yeah.
maybe they can reduce it without causing any permanent damage."
Mm.
And the doctor looked at the MRI and then called in a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon looked at it and they conversed for a minute and neurosurgeon left. And my doctor got on his phone for a minute or two and then came back and turned to me and said, "John, you have a 4.5 centimeter brain tumor. It's called an acoustic neuroma and it's displacing your brainstem."
Now, is that as big as a golf ball? How big
Yeah,
is 4.5? Is it?
yeah, yeah, it was about that big.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
More like an egg.
I got you. Okay.
And, he said, "It's killing you,
Oh,
and
oh,
we need to remove it, like, tomorrow." So, we've pushed another patient, and this is on a Monday, and he said, "Friday, you're going in for surgery whether or not you like it or not."
mm,
And he said it's a 15, 16-hour surgery, and, you're gonna
wow.
go deaf in your left ear. There's no saving your hearing, period.
And had you had some hearing issues with the dizziness?
Yeah, I was having trouble hearing men's voices on the
Okay.
phone.
Okay.
And he said, "There's a chance, John, there'll be some residual facial weakness, although, we're really good and we can try to preserve as much of that as possible. So, don't worry about that."
Hmm.
Um, but it's going to be a long road to recovery. Anytime you have brain surgery, it's not an easy thing.
Yeah. Wow.
And he said, "Well, the one good thing is there's not a lot of pain because you don't have nerve endings in your head,
Yeah. And that's
just in
something.
your scalp." So there's not gonna be a lot of pain involved, so that's the silver lining.
Is the spinal cord coming into play? Do they have to be careful of that too? I mean, all the nervous system is going through.
Well, it was the brain stem itself, that's
Oh,
what
okay.
was being displaced,
Gotcha.
and the more the brain stem was displaced, the more the dizziness started.
Okay. Okay.
So, I went through the surgery and again, woke up in surgical recovery, and then a couple hours later, the doctor came back and, came in, and they said, "When's my face gonna start moving?" And he was like, "We don't know. We're hopeful that it's, something temporary, and you're just gonna have to keep an eye on it and keep us posted." But, they were like, "Yeah, it should come back."
Hmm.
And so I latched onto that hope, you know? So I was able to go back home and start recovering. And when you have brain surgery, you're exhausted constantly. You need to take constant naps. Everything changes. The
Yeah.
to food taste of food changes, and your core temperature changes, and
Yeah.
all bets are off when you have brain surgery.
Man, everything you'd spent your life getting accustomed to now has
Yeah.
flipped upside down.
I mean, fortunately, I was able to operate my business from home. So, and this was long before Zoom. So it was, I would have conversations on the phone, and although I had a slight speech impediment, because I was unable to form one syllable in the English language which was the double P's, like in the word pepper,
Ah,
or ironically enough, in my own last name.
okay. Okay. Gotcha.
And so I worked with a speech therapist on how to pronounce that syllable properly so people could understand my name.
Mm,
How cruel can life be? How ironic can it be that the
yeah.
one syllable in the English language I have trouble saying is the one that's known
You
for.
had them too in your last name. Ah,
But I was able to dive deep into my work
mm,
and, not have to deal with it, but I found myself hiding from life, not
okay.
going out and seeing friends anymore, and not going to high school and college reunions, and
Were
just
you aware that you had chosen to hide, or was it just a natural reaction in the situation you were in?
I didn't realize that I was hiding for many years, over 10,
Okay.
12 years,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
you know?
Wow.
I would
Decade.
that then Facebook came out, and I would see pictures of friends posting pictures of reunions and getting together, and I was like, "God, I wanna be in those pictures."
Mm, mhm.
But I refused to pose for photographs because with my paralysis, I thought if I were in one of those photographs, I'd be ruining the photographs for the other people in them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was the destruction of my self-confidence
Yeah.
and my self-image,
Yeah.
I felt like I was a leper. And
Not a
one
great narrative to have going on in your head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was just easier to hide, and so that's what I did for 12 plus years.
Wow. And most people don't understand the mind-brain connection, and they don't realize that neuroscience calls the brain a servo mechanism, which is a robot, and it's programmed through the narrative. It's not what happens to us, but how we talk to ourselves about what happens to us that gets recorded neurologically. And you're at a point where, without knowing it, you are now creating for your brain to find rejection. Look for those expressions in their faces that are not comfortable with me. And that's what happens to people without even knowing it, is they draw towards themselves that which they feel worthy of. And you, sounds like your transformation was changing your worthiness, because you're so attractive, and you draw towards now because it's so freeing to that you're comfortable. Then that makes me look at, what have I allowed myself not to be comfortable with. I hope you understand what phenomenal teachings and power that you are offering other human beings by being so authentic and real about your life. Because when people are authentic with us, we're very forgiving. We stop seeing what's wrong and we start seeing what we like. And you've opened that door, and I'm telling you, I'm grateful, and I feel blessed that we finally had the opportunity to get together on this podcast. What is your greatest takeaway from this experience? And for those that are listening that have got hung up on some inadequacy that they feel they have and have blown it totally out of proportion, and now they think it's what's keeping them held back, or they think it's somebody else that's keeping them from moving forward. What insights would you give to them? And then how can they get a hold of you and get more information on this phenomenal John Kippen?
Well, they can get a hold of me just by going to johnkippen.com, and remember, it's 2 P's, as in
That took you years to be able to do that.
yeah, in a minute, I authored a book, and
Uh,
the forward's by my good friend, Jamie Lee Curtis.
all right.
Um, and the book is, Playing the Hand You Were Dealt, and it's a memoir filled with pictures and QR codes that allow you to go to videos of me
Oh, beautiful.
performing magic, and that
Oh,
was
wow.
really the defining moment, is that I started, you know, telling people my story and, showing up as my authentic self, and all of a sudden, people drew power from that,
Hmm,
They drew courage.
hmm.
If John could do it, why can't I do it?
Yeah.
That was kind
Wow.
of the message, and then I started drawing people who were hiding from life
Hmm,
or whatever they were going through in their lives, and they saw my power of putting that all aside, and they didn't know how to do it, they just knew they were attracted to it. And it was funny, I'd sit at a table with a group of people, and they were engaged, they were mesmerized, they were like,
hmm.
"We want John's secret sauce."
Yeah.
And especially women, were so wrapped up in self-image, and it was funny, I would have other magicians watching me perform, and the reactions I got from these audience members were so authentic
Hmm.
that the magicians come up to me afterwards and said, "How do you how do you wrap those audience members around your little finger
Hmm.
and get them to love you?" And, I tell the story, I'll sit down at a table with 5 or 6 women at the Magic Castle, and they're all dressed up to the nines because you have to dress up when you go there, and they're there to flaunt their sexuality and their femininity, and they see this guy who overweight with balding and paralyzed face, and so they sit down, they're kind of reserved and leaning back and not knowing kind of who I am, but I start and, I share my own humanity, I share my story, and I share how I came out of my funk, and all of a sudden their body language changes, and they start to put their hands down by their side, and they uncross their legs, and they start leaning in,
Mm,
and they get engaged with my story and my magic, and they feel like I'm talking to them, to their heart, directly to their heart,
hmm,
and sharing something really, really personal that happened to me. And I can see this wall that women are forced to put up in today's society, especially now, that they're
yeah,
just so wrapped up in self-preservation.
yeah, yeah,
And I see these walls start to drop, giving women the ability to be themselves and be their sexual and emotional selves, that their femininity. And all of a sudden, from they go in 20 minutes, they go from being so standoffish and reserved to, by the end of the show, asking to hug me.
mm,
And I was like, wow, what
golly,
what is that magic?
yeah,
And so I'm a creative problem solver. I'm an intellectual thinker. So
yeah.
um,
Would
a
you
cou-
say that putting the money aside, that that hug is why you do what you do?
oh, absolutely,
Huh? Yeah,
because I know I'm touching them on a deep level,
yeah,
on a human level. They
yeah,
see something attractive in me, and they want some of that secret sauce.
yeah.
They wanna learn how to get out of their own way. That's what I do. I help
Beautiful,
my clients get out of their own frickin' way. We
beautiful.
are all our worst enemy.
Mm. I had a professor in graduate school who had a doctorate in child psychology. He said, "I don't know if you're ever going to have children or not." He said, "But should you decide to have children, you want to hit it over the fence as a parent." He
Yeah,
goes, "It's not how much time you spend with your kids. It's not where you take your kids. It's not the things that you provide for your kids. As if they know one thing." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "That they're loved unconditionally." And that's easier said than done. As much as we love our children and our spouse and our friends, when the kid comes home with 5 A's and a B, and you want to talk about the B, those are the subtle ways of putting it on conditions upon our love.
right.
And what you offer, and the reason you get these hugs, as far as my understanding and my sense of life and what it is to be authentic, is because you've accepted them
Yeah.
for who they are, not who they're trying to become or what they think they should be. And that's you can't put a price on that, John. And you are an amazing entity. And I'm glad I didn't know how exciting this podcast was going to be, or I'd have trouble sleeping last night. Looking
No,
forward to it.
it people say, "God, if John can do it, I can do it."
Yeah, yeah.
I had no intention that I never knew that this was gonna the result. But
But it was a gift. It turned out to be a gift, didn't it?
and all of a sudden, I started attracting people who were going through something in their lives,
Yeah, yeah.
and they didn't have the answers,
Wow.
but they would approach me and say, "John, help." You know?
Yeah,
I I I feel so empowered by just your presence and what you've gone through and how you come out the other side and how you grab life by the horns and just do it. I always live my life feeling it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission, and that has bit me in the butt many times,
I hear you. My
but
wife says, "How come you always get a parking place in the front, Larry?" And I says, "Because most people have already talked themselves out of there'll be any place in the front."
I have great parking karma,
Right? Right?
amazing parking karma.
Yeah, yeah.
So happiness is a choice, Larry.
Mm. Amen. Amen.
Happiness is a choice that you make. Opportunity is always there.
Hmm.
We just need to take the blinders off us to recognize it. And then once we see it, need to seize it
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
let anybody's comments or opinions keep you from reaching that joy and that opportunity.
Yeah. Bless you,
Um,
my friend.
it's what I can do to change the world, one interaction at a time,
Yeah. You know, none of us none of us want to follow anyone who's mean spirited. None of us want to get behind anything that doesn't bring out the best in self and others. And, and I'm an eternal optimist, and I know this too shall pass. And that old adage about forgive them, they know not what they do. And I think as both of us are more than glass half full, are those the only glasses you have? Give me some more so we can fill those up too. Um, I just want to, let everyone out there know that because they were so concerned about making sure they would be that which attracts others towards them and be a part of making this a better world, because they've listened all this way, John has a gift for you. And the only way you receive this is because you listen to it. And would you like to tell them what that gift is, John?
Yeah, I offer a colored PDF version of this book. It's a best-selling book, again, forward by Jamie Lee.
Yep.
And
And your investment was your time, everybody. And what
the way you get it is you go to johnkippen.com/free gift, all one word.
beautiful.
And it's a little form. It's going to ask your contact info and your name and your phone number so I can, have you in my database. But
Sure.
then you'll have a link where you can download this PDF of my book. And it's filled with stories of my successes and failures and how I became a creative problem solver and how I looked at life through a different lens and
Beautiful.
how I just looked at life as a journey of problems to solve creatively.
Beautiful.
And then
Beautiful.
it's got QR codes that allow you to, go to a secret area in the website where you see me do my thing.
It
And
just keeps on giving, it sounds like.
and then if, you're inspired by what you hear on the podcast or um, what you read in the book, reach out. KippenCoaching.com or JohnKippen.com. Those hopefully will be in the show notes so you don't have to remember them. But, I coach people on resilience and empowerment.
Yeah.
And I teach people how to be resilient and how to be empowered and how to show up
Beautiful.
as their authentic self and
Well,
get out of their own way.
yeah.
That's the problem. People get in their own way and they stop their forward momentum. And that is not the way you want to live out your life because life is short.
Yeah.
No
Amen.
matter what you believe is in the afterlife or whatever, this is the time we need to really show up and make a difference. And the joy comes from helping others.
Well, you've certainly helped all of us, and thank you for showing up. And all of you that had a choice out there, thank you for choosing this. Get his download, find this part of you that seems to be more in your way than helping you find the way. And so, on behalf of myself and John, we hope our paths cross in the near future, and it's been a delight. So everybody, thank you again. And remember, wherever you find yourself, whatever the circumstances you face, you are at the perfect time in your life to make the choice that'll absolutely transform. And John has given you a lot of that.
Remember, everyone, you are enough just the way you are.
Beautiful. What a great way to close. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Larry.
You bet. You bet.
Take care.
You too.